Welcome back to the Fan Files, episode 40. It feels like forever since the Gabby Petito case was everywhere, all over the news.
Yeah.
But Netflix just released this new docuseries,
Right.
American Murder, Gabby Petito, and everyone's talking about it again.
Definitely a story that captured, the world's attention.
Yeah.
And with these new interviews and footage, I think the docuseries, it promises to give us a deeper look into what happened.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing today, right?
Yeah.
We're going beyond the headlines.
Yeah.
We're diving into what the documentary reveals about Gabby herself, not just the, smiling face we saw online. What was the reality of her relationship with Brian Laundrie?
Right.
And what are her parents doing now after all this?
Yeah, the documentary really tries to show us Gabby as a whole person. Her parents talk about her as this creative, adventurous spirit.
Right.
They even use the phrase feisty free spirit, which got me thinking.
Okay, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Why did that phrase stand out to you?
Well, because it makes you wonder, did that free spirit, that desire to explore and experience life to the fullest, did that play a role in what happened? Did it maybe make her more trusting? Perhaps a little less cautious?
Right.
And it also, it challenges the narrative that sometimes gets built around victims.
Right.
Reducing them to just their tragic fate. This documentary wants us to remember Gabby for who she was.
Right.
Not just how she died.
That's a really good point, yeah.
Yeah.
And we also get to hear from people who knew Gabby before the van trip.
Right.
Like her former boyfriend, Jackson.
Yeah.
He talks about her fears of leaving Brian, which is pretty powerful,
It is.
It makes you realize how much anxiety might have been hidden beneath that.
Yeah.
Like van life image they projected on social media.
It's a classic example of how social media can be a highlight reel, right?
Totally.
We often only see the curated, picture-perfect version of people's lives.
Right.
And in this case, that contrast is especially stark,
Yeah.
It makes you question, how much of what we see online is actually real.
Right. Like, it's so easy to get caught up in the beautiful photos and adventurous stories and forget that there's a whole other side to the story that we're not seeing. And the docuseries really brings that home.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to Gabby's parents' evolving view of Brian.
Right.
At first, they liked him.
Yeah.
But then they started picking up on some troubling behaviors.
What's fascinating about that is how common that experience is.
Yeah.
Think about how many times we've heard stories of friends or family members who were initially charmed by someone who turned out to be abusive. It's a reminder that abusers can be very good at hiding their true nature, especially at the beginning of a relationship.
It's almost like there's a script they follow,
Yeah.
Charm everyone, gain their trust,
Right.
and then slowly reveal their true colors once they feel like they have control.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to talk about the red flags of abusive relationships, things like possessiveness, jealousy, controlling behavior, isolating their partner from friends and family. Those are all signs that something might be wrong.
And I think the documentary does a good job of showing that progression,
Yeah.
especially with the Moab, Utah police incident.
Right.
It's tough to watch Gabby downplay the situation to her parents, knowing what ultimately happened.
Yeah.
That makes you wonder,
Right.
was she afraid of making Brian angry? Was she trying to protect him? Or was she minimizing the abuse to herself?
Right.
Almost like she couldn't fully acknowledge what was happening.
That's such an important question.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the complexity of domestic abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Victims often downplay or even hide the abuse for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Fear, shame, a desire to protect their abuser, a belief that they can change them.
Right.
These are all factors that can contribute to a victim staying in a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
And seeing Gabby's interactions with the police, knowing what we know now,
Right.
it really underscores that point. And what's even more heartbreaking is the documentary includes footage from Gabby's mom's phone,
Oh, wow.
where she's asking the police to put Gabby on the phone.
Right.
She just wanted to hear her daughter's voice
Yeah.
to make sure she was okay.
Right.
But it never happened.
You could just hear the worry in her voice.
Yeah.
The, desperate need to connect with her daughter.
Yeah.
Knowing that they never got that chance to talk.
Right.
It just adds another layer of tragedy to the whole thing.
It's a reminder of how quickly things can change and how precious those moments of connection are.
Yeah.
And the documentary also highlights the power of communication, or rather, the lack of it,
Right.
through the text messages that are included.
Right, like those messages Gabby sent Brian at the restaurant in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Witnesses had described him arguing with the staff.
Right.
And you can see in her text that she's clearly trying to de-escalate the situation. It's almost like she's taken on the role of mediator.
Yeah.
Trying to keep the peace.
It's a subtle but telling detail, isn't it?
Yeah.
It suggests that this kind of dynamic, Gabby trying to manage Brian's emotions and behavior, might have been a recurring pattern in their relationship.
Yeah.
And that can be a sign of emotional abuse.
Right.
Where one partner constantly walks on eggshells, trying to avoid triggering the other person's anger or volatility.
It's just so unsettling to see those messages, knowing what happened afterwards.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching a car crash in slow motion.
Right.
Knowing the impact is coming, but unable to stop it.
And that's why I think this case resonated with so many people. It tapped into that universal fear of the unknown, the feeling that even in the age of social media and constant connectivity, someone can just vanish without a trace.
It's that unsettling feeling of this could happen to anyone.
Yeah.
But what's really remarkable is how Gabby's family has chosen to channel their grief into something positive.
The Gabby Petito Foundation is an incredible testament to their strength and resilience. They could have easily retreated from the public eye, but instead they've used their platform to try and prevent other families from experiencing the same pain.
It's like they're taking this awful tragedy and trying to create some good out of it, which is just so inspiring.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the foundation.
Sure.
What exactly are they doing?
Their mission is really twofold.
Okay.
First, they're working to support searches for missing persons.
Okay.
They've partnered with organizations that specialize in search and rescue efforts and are advocating for increased resources and funding for these operations.
That's so important because we often see how quickly media attention fades.
Yeah.
And with it, the resources dedicated to finding someone.
Exactly, and the Petito family understands that firsthand.
Right.
They know the agony of waiting for answers, of feeling like the world has forgotten about your loved one.
Yeah.
They're determined to make sure that doesn't happen to others.
And the other part of their mission is focused on domestic violence prevention.
Yeah. Yes, and this is where their work gets really interesting.
Okay.
They're not just raising awareness about the issue, but they're also advocating for systemic change.
Okay.
They're pushing for better training for law enforcement to recognize and respond to domestic violence situations, and they're working to provide resources and support for survivors.
It sounds like they're taking a really comprehensive approach, tackling the issue from multiple angles.
And they're also being very intentional about reaching out to communities that are often overlooked or marginalized.
Right.
Their advocacy for missing and murdered Indigenous women, MMIW, is a powerful example of that.
I remember hearing about their involvement with Jamie Yazie's case.
Right.
That really showed their commitment to ensuring that all missing persons cases receive the attention they deserve.
Yeah.
Regardless of the victim's background or ethnicity.
Exactly.
They're shining a light on the systemic inequalities that exist within law enforcement and the media, and how those inequalities often result in certain cases receiving less attention and resources.
Right.
It's a reminder that every missing person has a story.
Yeah.
A family desperately searching for answers. And by amplifying those voices, the Petito family is contributing to a broader movement for justice and accountability.
And they're doing it in a way that honors Gabby's memory.
Right.
She was clearly a passionate and caring individual.
Yeah.
And her family is continuing that legacy by fighting for others.
It's powerful to see how they're turning their personal tragedy into a force for good.
Yeah.
You know, going back to the documentary for a moment, one thing that really struck me was the contrast between the carefully curated image of Gabby and Brian's relationship on social media versus what was actually happening behind the scenes.
It's a stark reminder that social media often presents a very filtered version of reality, especially when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
We see the happy photos, the adventurous trips. We rarely see the arguments, the tensions, the everyday struggles.
And in Gabby and Brian's case, those struggles were clearly much deeper and darker than anyone realized.
Right.
It makes you think about the pressure that young people face today to present this, like, perfect image online.
Yeah.
And the toll that it can take.
It's almost like we've created this culture of comparison where everyone is constantly trying to outdo each other with their seemingly perfect lives.
Right.
And when your own life doesn't measure up, it can be really damaging to your self-esteem.
It's like we're all living in this highlight reel, forgetting that real life is messy and complicated and full of ups and downs.
Right.
And I think Gabby's story is a wake-up call to be more mindful of what we're consuming online.
Yeah.
And to remember that things aren't always what they seem.
It's about developing critical thinking skills and being able to discern the truth from the carefully constructed narratives we often encounter on social media.
Right.
And it's also about being more compassionate and understanding towards ourselves and others, recognizing that everyone is going through their own struggles, even if they're not sharing them online.
It makes you realize how important it is to have open and honest conversations with the people you care about.
Yeah.
And to create a space where it's safe to be vulnerable and ask for help when you need it.
Absolutely. And that's something the Gabby Petito Foundation is actively working towards.
Right.
They're providing resources and support for those affected by domestic violence and working to educate the public on the signs to watch out for, encouraging people to reach out for help if they or someone they know is in a dangerous situation.
It's an incredible legacy for Gabby.
Yeah.
And it speaks volumes about her family's strength and determination to turn this tragedy into something positive.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of unimaginable loss, there's always hope and the potential for positive change.
Before we wrap up, there's one more thing I wanted to mention.
Okay.
The Petito family has also been advocating for another missing person case, Nikki McCain, who disappeared under some pretty unusual circumstances.
It's not directly related to Gabby's case.
Right.
But it highlights their dedication to helping others and ensuring that no one is forgotten.
Yeah.
They're using their platform to shine a light on this case and to advocate for a thorough investigation.
It's a reminder that there are countless families out there searching for answers.
Yeah.
And every missing person deserves our attention and support. If you're interested in learning more about Nikki's case or the Gabby Petito Foundation, we'll include some links in the show notes.
It's definitely worth exploring further.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of the Fame Files.
Yeah.
It's been a heavy but important conversation.
Uh-huh.
We've uncovered the truth behind the perfect picture, explored the complexities of domestic violence, and witnessed the power of turning tragedy into action.
Absolutely.
Gabby Petito's story is a reminder that we must be vigilant, both online and in our personal lives. It's a call to action to support each other, to listen to our instincts,
Right.
and to never stop fighting for justice and truth.
Couldn't have said it better myself.